Our next speaker will help us explore the issue of Hispanic political influence, and there's a key focus on nurturing leadership. Maryland State Representative Joseline Peña-Melnyk is a founding member of the Maryland Legislative Caucus, and she represents Legislative District 21. She joined the State House more than a decade ago after beginning her career in the trenches of public service as a public defender in Philadelphia and then as a federal prosecutor in D.C. She's been a U.S. citizen since 1983, and she was born in the Dominican Republic and raised by a single mother who worked in New York's garment industry and often struggled to make ends meet. But despite this, she excelled in school and became the first member of her family to graduate from college. She's now in her 5th term, and she is the chair of the Health and Government Operations Committee, which makes her the highest-ranking Latina in the history of the Maryland General Assembly. You can read more about her very impressive background on our website at nationalpress.org. Delegate Peña-Melnyk, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's really an honor.
So I know you have prepared some remarks. I'll let you take it away.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. How are you? It's afternoon already, right? I gave up wearing a watch a long time ago. But now we look at what? We look at our cell phones, right? So I want to say first, thank you for having me. I certainly don't take it for granted. I really appreciate it. I want to thank you for the time you're about to give me, which I certainly as well appreciate, because you could be doing something else, right? And you're paying attention, and I appreciate it. So I want to tell you a little bit about myself so that you can understand why I am the type of legislator that I am today, right? Why I make decisions, what moves me. So I came to this country when I was almost 8 years old with my mom. We were born in Dominican Republic. How many of you have been to Dominican Republic? It's a great place to visit. I'm very biased, but people are very humble. It's so beautiful. And my mom, like many other immigrants, came to this country because she wanted a better life, right? And she actually, my dad petitioned for her, my sister and I. My sister and I are what you call Irish twins because we are 11 months apart. For the month of June, we for 25 days, we have the same age. I'm older by 11 months, and I say I look younger. She doesn't like it. So, we were in DR waiting for our papers, and our dad came first, like many immigrants. And when we arrived here, I am very candid and I'm very open. He had another life, okay, another woman. And we found ourselves that first night without a house. And when you talk about legislating, I legislate from experience. No one can tell me what it's like not to have a home. No one can tell me what it's like not to have a meal. Because when I lived in the Dominican Republic with 17 other people at one point with my grandparents, and we shared the bedroom, my sister and I, with my grandparents, in a 3-bedroom, tiny little wooden house where the houses were so close to each other that you could hear everything that happened in your neighbor's home. I remember at noon that we would take an empty plate and we would hit it with a fork so that our neighbors would think that we were eating at noontime. And those of you that are from the islands, you know that at noon we eat. Okay, we're strict about that. And we were so embarrassed that we would hit it with a fork. I remember walking from school home and spending more than an hour at 12:30, 1 o'clock with that sun in the island that was so hot, okay? So when I legislate from experience. I know what it's like to be hungry. I know what it's like to not have transportation, right? I know what it's like not to have 25 cents in my pocket while I was in college, all right? So it's from here, from the heart. And where I find that balance, that I don't pigeonhole myself as the Black Latina, because that's what I am, I'm both. This doesn't come from the beach, okay? It's a delicate balance, but it's one that I make keeping in mind my values, my principles. And I can tell you as I stand in front of you that I have been a state legislator for almost 18 years, that I have never compromised my values when I make a decision, when I vote. Even when we're 141 delegates in the House, 47 senators in the Senate, 188 legislators in Maryland, even when I'm one of 5 that voted against casinos, I did, one of 5. And the pressure that I felt when the governor was calling me to vote for it, people that supported me were calling to vote for it, but to be able to stand strong and say, no, I'm not going to do it, all right? To be able to wake up in the morning and like yourself, go to bed at night and feel okay about what you did, right? And to be able to say, you could take my chairmanship away, but this is how I'm going to vote. It is empowering, because you should never, anything you do in life is not just about politics, compromise your values. You have to believe in something, and that is really, really, really important. So when I came to this country and I saw my mom struggle, and my mom didn't know English, she didn't even, I don't think she finished 3rd grade elementary school. Couldn't read or write Spanish that well, and English, forget about it. Very, very few words. And when I came here, I learned English with Mr. Rogers, Sesame Street, okay, watching television. And my mom and I will go, and my sister, to the welfare office. And she would volunteer me at 8 years old. They had no business knowing what was going on in someone else's household, whether the man was there, why is it that you're asking for welfare, and the women will be treated like dirt. And at that point, at 8 years old, I knew what was right and what was wrong. And I didn't like the way these women were, and it was mostly women, were being asked these questions. And my mom will often call me la abogadita. For those of you that know Spanish, means the little lawyer. So you watch the power of your words, because they matter. And I knew there and then that I wanted to be a lawyer. Don't ask me why. And that I wanted to be the voice for my community. So to make a long story short, because I know our time is limited, I decided that I wanted to go to college. And I lived in Washington Heights, New York. That's where we landed, Dominican land. Anyone from Washington Heights? That's where I landed, okay? And I knew I wanted to go to college, and I asked my advisor, I want to go to college. I didn't even know what it entailed. And I applied to some New York schools, got into them, and I chose the one that was furthest away from the city, because my friends, including my sister, who had a baby when she was 16, and my mom was very disappointed, you know, I wanted more. So I went to Buffalo, and I always tell people, especially women, you know, take a chance. Push yourself. Get out of your comfort zone. Try something new. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. What's the end of the world? What's the end of, what can happen? Nothing. You're still breathing, right? You have choices. So I decided to do that, and I went to Buffalo, New York, 8 hours away by car. And when I got there, oh my God, I arrived January of '85. You know what happened January of '85? Storm, a blizzard. And I got stuck in Syracuse and for 2 days. And I went to Buffalo. I graduated from a 4-year school in less than 3 years. I was possessed. And I would tell my younger self, slow down, all right? And I graduated with honors. I went to summer school. I took 18 credits, 21 credits. I wanted to get out. And then I applied to law school, got waitlisted, and was able to get off the wait list because someone did me a favor and arranged a meeting with one of the deans. And I went and I poured my heart out. And I told her, this is the only school I apply for, right? Because I didn't have any mentorship. You can't be what you can't see. It's really hard. And I got in. And when I got in, one summer I went to Ohio. I worked with migrant farm workers. The other summer I went to Alabama. I have never been to Alabama. I drove 2 days, 22 hours. And for this New York girl, that was another world. But in any event, always push yourself. I ended up graduating and had my first job at the public defender's office in Philly. Took the bar, did not pass because English is my second language. And they time you. It takes me a while, the reading comprehension. Took it again. She gave me another chance, and I failed, and I lost my job, right? It's okay. I thought it was the end of the world then. You will be okay, all right? I lost the job. I decided to, I had to give up my job in the apartment. I decided to take it again, and I lost by, it was like 5 points, 23 points the first time, like 5 points. And the last time I took it, I failed by 1 point, 1 point, all right? And you have to ask yourself why. Well, there's no answer. It's just how life works out. Do you want it? You push yourself. So I took it again and I passed. And I decided to be a court-appointed lawyer and then a prosecutor. And why did I run for office? I ran for office because I wanted to be a voice in the community because I didn't see people that look like me, okay? And I have 3 kids, and I always say you can be what you can see. It's important because if we're not at the table, women are not at the table, if we don't have diversity, black and brown people are at the table, Asian, Native American, white women, you name it. Just like your hand, your 5 fingers are all different, but you need them for your hand to work. It is important to have diversity for the policies to be balanced and for the policies to make sense and for the policies to be fair, okay? And I decided to run. So I ran for the city council, got elected. In the middle of my 2nd term, this position came up, and I have never, didn't know what it entailed. I didn't know that it paid, but I knew I wanted to run for it. So I went to my husband, and let me tell you something. Who you choose can make you or break you. You need to choose someone in your life that is going to enhance your life, that's going to add to your life. You do not settle. You're not a rehabilitation center, okay? You get it right from the beginning, all right? My husband and I, we have been married 30 years, and he was my boyfriend in law school, and he was the person who pushed me to take that bar when I didn't think I was going to take it, okay? And I went to him, I said, do you love me? He said, that's a stupid question. I said, well, I'm going to take our money, and I'm not asking you for permission, but I want you to say it's okay and that you will be there. And he said, fine. So I took our money, I rented a space because no one would write a check or endorse me. The only endorsement I got was the Sierra Club for the work I did on the council, right? And the Washington Post endorsed me because they saw the campaign that I have. So you can make a difference because that endorsement of the Washington Post made a difference in my life. Why? Because they went in deep and they took the layers away like an onion, and they found out who is this woman, what drives her, and they reported responsibly on it when no one knew me because I didn't have the money to get the word out because it's all about getting the money, your word out, getting your name out there, right, and your story. So basically, I ran. There were 9 of us running for 3 seats. I door knocked on more than 10,000 doors, did about 7 mailings, 8,000 phone calls. And on the day of the election, I came in 2nd, almost 1st. I've been there 18 years. And you know what is so gratifying is that I am free. I am free to vote how I feel because I came in independently, right? Free as a Democrat, but free. But also, I don't forget where I come from, all right? And I'm not going to apologize because the experiences I have lived have allowed me to make the decisions I make as the chairman of the health committee. So as the chairman of the health committee, I have 23 members, including myself. 3 lawyers that make the committee. I have a secretary, an assistant, a chief of staff, a receptionist, 2 clerks, and 6 interns, right? So it's about maybe 40 people during session, all right? We deal with every bill that comes up, and that committee deals with health. So what do I focus on? I focus on those social determinants of health, right? Who knows what those social determinants of health are in here? What are they? And what do they determine? Anyone? It is the way you live, lack of education, lack of transportation, lack of money, the environment, right? And who does that affect the most? Who? Women, but who? Black and brown, indigenous people, poor people, right? And during COVID, what did we learn? That the communities that were mostly highly affected were what? Communities of color. In Maryland, we have 23 counties in Baltimore City. And the county, the largest African-American county, Prince George's County, had the highest number of COVID-19 cases at the height of COVID. And the zip code with the highest number of COVID-19 cases was 20783, which is the immigrant brown community, right? So it was important for the news to report this, because why did you have to report it and report it accurately? You know why? Because when we don't have a lot of resources and we have to divide that that pie, how do we do it? Where do we give the resources when there aren't that many, right? Not a lot of vaccines. How do we divide them? Well, you use data. Data, right? Wow, what a concept. You use science, what a concept, right? Based on the truth that can guide you so that we can all get there in a fair way, right? So that is what our committee, my committee, focused on, and is what I have focused on. So I put in a bill that during that session I learned that requires implicit bias training for all healthcare providers in the state of Maryland. And do you think that was an easy bill to put in? No. Why? Because the doctors didn't want to take another class. The nurses didn't want to take another class, right? But I know it's important because I look at maternal mortality rate among black women. They die at 4 times a higher rate than white women. When you look at the Latino brown community and you look at diabetes, right? And those chronic illnesses, high blood pressure, it affects the brown community, right? When you look at cancer and you look at some women and other people in the community, how it affects them as well. So I have focused on my career on that, okay? I have really been intentional, unapologetic about working hard to make sure that we pass policies that benefit all of us. And yes, I'm black and brown, but I represent everyone, everyone. So we had a bill, and I want to give you an example about how reporting is so important. And the work you do to make sure you report responsibly, that you report in an accurate way with facts, and to keep your biases to the extent you can, because we're humans, out of your story. And let your viewers, because you provide the facts in a balanced way, decide. So we had a bill last session. It was a bill that says the following: the federal government does not allow an undocumented individual to buy insurance on the federal public exchange, right? The marketplace. It's a rule, it's a law. But the Biden administration has allowed a waiver, a 1332 waiver, which is basically permission from the federal government for the states to be innovative and be creative, to allow undocumented individuals to purchase health insurance on the federal exchange to Washington State and Oregon. So I thought, heck, why not? Because in Maryland, we have done a great job with the exchange, and when we expanded Medicaid, where we reduced the number of uninsured by more than 50%. But you know who's left? 250,000 undocumented immigrants in Maryland have no insurance. And where do they go get their care? Anyone? And is that the most expensive care you can get? Yes. And is the wait time, Maryland has the worst wait time in the nation at the ER as well. And we give a lot of uncompensated care, right? And it's just not right. I believe that healthcare is a right. And other countries are doing it a lot better than us. Other countries are spending less money and have better outcomes. So we must do better. So I put in the bill to help cover that 250,000 people. And you can say that I only care about them. Don't pigeonhole me. And I dislike it when people do that. Because I started by supporting the exchange for everyone, by expanding Medicaid for everyone, by introducing a bill to create a reinsurance program. And the name there is Pena-Melnyk, primary sponsor, not secondary. And now who is left? I left it for last. Because there's always a balance. The immigrant community. So we put in the bill to say we're going to seek a waiver from the federal government to allow undocumented immigrants that are not just Latinos. They're African. They're Asian, right? It's the way the media portrays it. It is that we're so polarized, right? In this country, when you hear undocumented illegals, I dislike that term, all right? It is the way it's put out there. So we must report responsibly. And I basically said, we're going to put in this bill to ask for a waiver from the federal government. And guess what? In order to get people to support it, we're not going to offer any subsidies because they're state money, right? And people are going to say, oh, you're taking my money, my taxes, you know, to pay for undocumented individuals. It's a battle at the state level as well. The difference between the federal government and us is that we are getting things done at the state level, and we are leading. And I'm not going to apologize about that or be humble about it because it is the truth. So we put in that bill that says no subsidies. Just allow them to buy with they're going to pay full freight, right? Like the entire policy, they're going to pay for it with their hard-earned money. And there are people that can pay it, right? But the advantage of buying on the exchange is that you have navigators. They look at those thousands and thousands of policies and are able to look at your situation, what medication you're on, what is beneficial for you, and recommend what is the best policy for you. Do you think someone that doesn't speak the language, that doesn't have the education, that cannot read or write like my mother can make that decision intelligently? Absolutely not. So all we're doing is a consumer protection bill to make it easier for people and allow them to buy, no subsidies. Well, that's not how it was reported. And our own president of the Senate, when he was interviewed, he would say, oh, I am concerned about the future and future subsidy. But guess what? If someone had taken the time to read the bill that is probably not even 5 pages, you would have seen that it says there, you would have noticed no subsidies. So what happened? Because it's not reported accurately, what do you think happened to the bill last year? Anyone? It died. And guess what? Not only did it die, 7 people were arrested because the advocates were so upset that they protested as well. So this year, we came back. And what we did that was very different was that we built a coalition of about 40 different people, not just Latinos, but, you know, blacks, Asian, from everywhere. And we work with the media to be able to get the story out that it was accurate, writing op-eds, talking to the reporters ahead of time and letting them know what the bill did, taking your questions as well, having press conferences, right? So this year, guess what happened to the bill? It passed. But not only did it pass, it was very painful to get it to pass. I ended up getting a threat that was horrible. Someone that called the office because I got up on the floor and I actually spoke on the bill. All right? So not reporting correctly is not just consequences that a bill dies. It is consequences to me because for about 3 weeks, I had to walk with a state trooper in the evening to get to my hotel because during session, I stay in a hotel for 90 days. And it was the first time in 18 years that I was actually afraid. And I'm a tough cookie, okay? And that was because the story didn't get out there. It didn't get out there correctly with the right facts as well. And when you get an opportunity to talk to someone like myself, don't call us the day that your story is due. Do me a favor. Call me and say, Delegate Peña-Melnyk, I'd like to talk to you about this story. Can we set up a time? You know why that is fair? Because it's not right for you to put me on the spot and then get an attitude. That has happened. People get an attitude when I say, can you send me the questions and can you give me some time to think about it? Right? Don't get upset because we're humans and we want to be able to speak because once you put it in print, can you unring that bell? You cannot. So try to be fair that way, okay? And try to really get the story and to be balanced about it, which is so important because it makes a difference. It really does. because otherwise it makes it really hard for someone like me to be able to pass that bill. Once you put it out there and it's not right, it is unbearable. It is almost impossible, because people are going to look for all kinds of excuses to kill your bills as well. So you can make a difference in the way you report. You really can in getting out there and going to your editor and saying, you know what, I know about this story or this topic, may I write a story, and I'll do the work, right? And getting the work, you can make a difference in communities, right? Whether it's food desert, whether it's the environment, whether it's an incinerator that is being proposed, just by getting the story out there can really make a difference. And it can help me when I talk to leadership about getting that bill out there as well. It's really, I never thought I would be in this position. I never wanted to run for office. First, because I didn't even know it existed, until I became well-read and I lived a little as well. I try to do my best because I know I don't want to be the last. And because I know that I have to work twice as hard because I want someone that looks like me to be given an opportunity as well, right? For that door to be open for the next Joseline. And it is really a lot of responsibility. It's one that I don't take lightly. I give this my absolute best. This job is supposed to be part-time, January to April. I work 7 days a week. And what you're not going to read are the times that I go see a constituent at the hospital, or I go to an IEP hearing, or I go to the school and I meet a young lady that I never met who called my office and said, I can't pay my last semester and I'm about to graduate, and I go with her to beg, the school administrator to find money for her. Those are things you're not going to read. So try to get to know that person, okay? Try to have, I have friendships with some of the reporters. Some of them won't be your friends, but try to see us as human beings, right? That we go home, we have families, we have problems like anyone as well, and that to do this work, especially during these times, is because you care, because it's not easy. Because I think that once a week I talk myself off the ledge about stopping, okay? So now my mission is to mentor others, to mentor a lot of young people like yourselves, to be able to run for office. And when I meet women, I tell them, consider it. It is worth it. We need to be at the table because we bring a different perspective, and these policies have to have our input because it matters. I'm going to stop there. Thank you so much for letting me speak with you.
I am going to take moderator's privilege before I open it up to ask you something. You made a very powerful statement when you said for the first time in your career you felt afraid when this recent threat was made. Mm-hmm. And so we've been hearing that repeatedly as a theme that women lawmakers have to take into consideration. What I'd like to hear from you is, what do you hear from your male colleagues on the floor about whether they undergo any sorts of harassment or threats, or whether they're concerned about what their female colleagues are going through?
My colleagues were very supportive, both Democrats and Republicans. On my committee, I have, with myself, 23 members, and we have Republicans and Democrats. And they were all very concerned, and they were very supportive. I try to be, on my committee, an inclusive leader, right? To be able, I know that the Republicans do not represent my values, right? But I know they have a constituency, and they have to go home, and I allow them to be able to speak to their constituents, right? And that is important. And they are, because we have such a great relationship, they were very supportive and very concerned about my well-being as well. And I think that with the immigration issue, it's not a male or female issue. It's just that this country is very polarized, especially on that issue. It is so divided. And on the floor, you can see the Republicans get up. Like that bill that I described, the Access to Care bill, that is what it's titled. They got up and, they spoke against it. and in a way that was very offensive, right? So there was a moment where I got up and I said, do not speculate, right? Don't talk about this is the sky is gonna fall when you have the bill in front of you and the bill has no subsidies. Stick to the bill. And I think that we need to keep reminding them, because they have all these stories, to stick to the bill, to the facts, to what it does. And I'll tell you a funny story. We have committee dinners. So they all got together and they got me a painting with myself in it that someone painted. It says, don't speculate, because I got up on the floor and I was like, do not speculate, right? Like, stick to the facts. So they're very supportive. On that particular issue, it's not a male or female, but there is a difference, right? You know, men have it a lot easier, and they really do. For women, it's very difficult, because when we're asked to run, there's a saying that says that we have to think about it 7 times. We have to be asked 7 times about it, right, before we do it. And why is that? Because they have access to money. Usually, women do not, right? Sometimes we stay home. We don't have the network that men have, right? There is a difference. And it's very tough to run for office because you need money. It takes money for those commercials that you see. It takes money for the T-shirts, to rent the office, for your volunteers. It's for the mailings, for the phone calls. It takes money. And it's very difficult. And for us, sometimes we are in the background helping these men get elected when we could do it for ourselves. And we have the skills. And we do it better because we can multitask. We're very good at that.
Let's open it up to questions now.
Hi, I'm Nancy. I'm work in Rhode Island, but I used to work in Maryland. I covered Annapolis for the Frederick News Post a few years ago. But so my question is, you know, you're a woman, Black, Latina, immigrant. There are like so many groups and identities that have really shaped who you are and your sort of legislative priorities. But how would you like reporters in the media to sort of balance these multiple identities that you have and the influence that they have on your priorities with also the things, you know, I guess, I don't know if I'm articulating this right, but I think a lot of times and just in news coverage, you know, oh, well, the Hispanic caucus wants this and the immigrant you know, lawmakers want this, and the women lawmakers want this, and sort of their identity is tied to their policy, and they're sort of inextricably linked in a way that there's no identity outside of that. And so I wonder, like, how you would like reporters to ask questions, to write about someone who, like yourself, who has all of these different identities that are a part of, but not all of who you are and why you do the things you do.
Yeah, and that's an excellent question, right? Because as I stand in front of you, I have been a member of the Black Caucus for 17 years. I created the Latino Caucus. I'm a member of the Women Caucus, and I'm also the chairman of a committee. So how do I take all of that and put it into one, right? Well, I try my best to be that chairman first, right? Because you can't take this away. This comes with everything. It's a given, right? So when I speak from experience, right? I go deep into that little girl that went to that welfare office that didn't have any food, and what comes out of this mouth, how I express it, right? But I'm not, the labels, I don't want the labels. I want you to treat me, and that's how I'm treated by the media, you know, as a woman, right, who manages a committee really well, who has passed a lot of great bills, but it also happens to be a Black Latina that has these memberships. So when something comes up that it's a Black Caucus issue, they'll call me, right? Because I am Black and Latina, and I'll speak to them on that issue, on the substance of the issue. Does that make sense? So I try to be really prepared on everything. Like, I do my homework. Like, my staff, to come here, they put a 10-page memo. Have I used it? No, don't tell them. Because they always do that, and I feel so bad. My husband says they'll get it one day, but this is my blanket, my security blanket. So I try to do my homework and to talk to them in a way that it's the human being talking to you, and with passion, with compassion, with empathy, with my research. And that gets rid of all those other labels, right? Does that make sense? It's a very delicate act, right? But I also have to push back when someone tries to box me, which is really important to be able to do that.
Hi, I'm Jeanette Diaz from New Mexico, and I had a question in terms of, have you ever faced any discrimination or animosity based on where you come from or the fact that you didn't go to an Ivy League school? And a sort of follow-up to that, how do you prove to yourself or prove to others, that you're valid in the position you are? Because I'm sure everyone in this room can think about their first job and having to prove themselves because they're a woman or because they're a person from color.
Yeah, I have had to do that my whole life, right? And I think the way that I have been successful in a very humble way in doing it is by, first of all, it starts with yourself. Because I remember being asked to apply for the U.S. Attorney's job. And I remember telling my friend who's from Mexico, Laura, and she's a judge now at a Superior Court in D.C., Judge Cordero, I said, they're not going to hire me. I didn't go to Harvard. I didn't go to Yale. I wasn't a Supreme Court clerk, right? Because that's DOJ. They hire a lot, during that time, a lot of people with that background. And she says, Joseline, I have seen you in court. You prepare. You do your homework. You know the law. You will be fine. So it's first with you, knowing that you could do the job better than anyone. Like, I know I'm not the smartest people in this room. I'm not the smartest person in this room. But I know that I will outwork all of you, right? Because that's what I learned from my mom, right? That comes here. And as an immigrant, we have this fire here. I can describe it to you, right? Where you have to make it. You have to work hard. So I think that it starts with you, knowing that you are very capable, all right? And you tell yourself that every single day. Working hard, because guess what? We have to work harder than most people because people are always going to be questioning us. So you have to work twice as hard, right? Keeping your word, meeting those deadlines, making sure that your stuff, when it goes out, it's accurate because you're not allowed a mistake, okay? And that is the reality of it. And it is doable, okay? It's a lot of pressure, but it is doable because you are opening up. How many Latina young ladies are there in the press? How many women are there? Not many, right? When it comes to Black, Latina, Native American, very few. So we're opening doors, but you have to make sure that you cross your T's and you dot your I's because it's important. You don't have the pleasure of not doing that. It's important. And do your homework because you can do it.
Hi, I'm April. I'm from Nevada Current.
Hi, April.
You mentioned a statistic that I've heard before about how when you're recruiting women for office, that you have to ask them like 7 times before they agree to run. And you even mentioned some of the barriers that are in place. Obviously, a lot of that is internal and feeling the confidence to do it. But what structurally can political parties or legislatures or whoever, outsiders, do to reduce those barriers sort of structurally and on a bigger system to make it easier for women to go in there and run for office?
So I'll go back to what I said a few minutes ago. I said it twice. You can't be what you can see. So we need women. If I made it and I'm here, I have to pull others up, first of all, right? Remember where you come from. Second, we have to have organizations that will train us how to run for office. So tonight I'm doing a keynote speech for Emerge Maryland. Emerge is an organization that helps women run for office. And what do? They bring women together doing months and months of training. And they have women like me talk to them and learn how to first fundraise, how to organize your campaign, how to draft your message, right? All the steps. we need people to invest in us. The parties need to invest in us. And we need to do better as a party. I know my own party at giving women opportunities, not just anointing people to take the seat when there's so many other people and women that can do it. So I think that as a society, we need to invest in women. We need to have organizations that give us support. And we need to be able to start early on, not just at this stage, but when you have these little girls, to believe in themselves and to know that they also can do it. And as future moms, or whether you choose to have kids or not, what we give our girls to read, right, as well is very important. And that they see women doing all kinds of professions is important. Also having internships for women as well, right? It's important. Having all these opportunities, we must demand it because the men have it, right? But women, we don't, and we have to build that. And the way we write the checks, you choose at home how you spend your money. So support an organization that supports women as well, right? Put your money where your mouth is. We can all do our part.
Hi, I'm Danielle Battaglia. I'm with McClatchy, D.C., covering North Carolina's congressional delegation. I've been asking this question a lot lately. My grandparents immigrated here, I think in the 30s or 40s, and I've sensed that the immigration system has gotten a lot harder over the years. And I wondered, as a lawmaker, what you see as the barriers for immigrating into the United States and how we can cover that more accurately to help people understand those barriers.
And thank you for sharing your story. Recently in Maryland, we had a horrible, horrible incident where the Key Bridge collapsed. The six men that died, 3 bodies have been recovered, were all Latinos, immigrants. And while we were asleep at home, at 1:30 at night, they were working, filling those potholes on the bridge. When you look at who does that work, construction, is mostly immigrants. So it is important to tell those stories, not just those stories, Danielle, of people that, which is horrible, commit the murders and the rape, which is sensationalized in the news for weeks. You hear facts. You see it in the newspaper. How about telling the story of those 6 men and why they came here and what they had to go through to come here and why? How about telling the story of the CEO of Coca-Cola? How about telling the story of the, Veronica Cool, CEO of her own company, or Gabriela Lemus, or Gustavo Torres, the executive director of a nonprofit? Why don't we have stories that put us in a better light, right? Which is so important. And what are immigrants? What do we contribute to this country? Which we are the engine, all right? What will happen if you have one day without immigrant labor in this country? How about telling those stories? That's important. Because, very important.
Thank you for that perspective.
You're welcome.
Hi, I'm Amanda Perez Pintado. I'm from Puerto Rico.
Un placer.
Neighbors. Igualmente. You mentioned briefly your party and what your party can do more. I feel like it's kind of, or there's this perception like that Latinos, Latina people vote Democrat, and that's not true. There's a very powerful Republican Latina force that dates back very far back into U.S. political history. But what can the Democratic Party do? What is it not doing right now, and what can it do to attract more, not just Latina voters, but also get more Latina candidates?
We need to invest in Latinx candidates. We need to invest, right? You cannot just be anointing the same people over and over again. You need to invest in us when we're coming up, right? And because we're very loyal. Once you have us, we stay with you. It's really important to do that, to provide opportunities for us, to invest in our communities as well. And I think that we need to have a better message, clearer message, which we lack, right? Because I hope I don't offend anyone here that is not a Democrat, but we are the party that cares about people, in my opinion. This is Joseline Peña-Melnyk speaking. They care about people, right? We care about you. We care about your family. We care about your kids, about the future. We care about those social programs to help people that are poor, right? Not just the rich and the businesses. And we care about choice, right? As a woman, choice is important to me. There's no way on earth I'm going to vote for a candidate that is not going to protect my right to reproductive rights. That is not negotiable. And it's not about whether you believe in abortion or not, and reproductive rights is not just abortion. It is, the right to contraceptive, having a vasectomy, IVF, right? All that stuff. It is not about whether you believe in abortion or not. And I don't care about your religious beliefs, because those are yours. But I don't want you to take my right away. And that is important. So we need to do a better job at describing that. We need to do a better job at describing the health disparities and why we need to invest in Black and brown communities and Native American communities. We need to do a better job at having people that look like all of us in a room as well. We need to do a better job about investing in those poor communities and giving people opportunities and in being inclusive. And when you have the same people saying the same message over and over again, without having the diversity, it's a problem, right? And we need to stop making assumptions that Latinos, do not care about reproductive rights, right? Because there are a lot of people, they're very religious, that care about those issues. We need to do a better job at letting the Latino community know that we cannot be a one-issue community. That there are many other issues that really affect whether we put food on the table, that our party will be there to support that, right? And that's important. And we lack on it. We really do. And we talk a big game, and we won your vote. We won your vote as Latino. Every, 30 seconds, there is, a Latino child that turns 18 that is a U.S. citizen in this country. It is a community that is growing and is worth investing, but we're not doing it.
Hi, I'm Jackie. I'm with Florida Phoenix. And obviously, it's one of the states that has a large population of Latinos and immigrants from all kinds of places. But what do you make in election years of stories that are trying to allude to the Latino vote? And how do you think journalists can better handle not putting everyone in one descriptor?
I think that you have to be balanced in making sure that you have other stories to balance that one as well, right? And that the stories that you may report on may not be sexy, may not be what's in, but that you put it out there and you validate it, right? To be able to have that balance. You have to think outside the box and make sure that we're portrayed in different ways, right? Because we're not all the same. And that's important. And especially your state, right? Where, it's so polarized as well, like the rest of the country, all of us as well. And it's important. You have the power of that pen to really dig deep and present us in a way that is respectable, that people can have empathy, that tell the story that we care about everything else that everyone cares. We care about whether we put food at the table, whether we have a job, whether our kids can go to college without having debt, right? Whether we have health insurance, whether we live in a place that we can drink the water and have, the air that is clean to breathe. We care about all of that. But that's not how we're reported. They only report on us on immigration. And we have a lot of amazing leaders and people that are doing really well out here. And you have that power with that pen.
We can take one more question.
Hi.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Jill. I'm with the Georgia Recorder. Will you tell us a little bit more about your journey to becoming a committee chairperson, and what did that look like for you, and were there challenges or barriers that you had to overcome to have a leadership role?
Absolutely. So I did not become a chairman, and unlike other people that have been there 7 years and already are chairman, it took me a while. It took me, I would say, probably close to 15 years. And that was because, and I was a vice chair for 2 years before that. It was because I am very independent and I speak up. And sometimes in our party, you have to just go with the majority all the time. And I have not always done that. And that is hard, right? Like you have to, but I know it. I know that I'm okay with that. And I never wanted to be a chairman. I know I just wanted to serve. And I'm free to get up on the floor, right? As a chairman, now I have to be, think about it. Ooh, should I do this? Is it gonna be upsetting? And I try to be balanced, right? Because we do good work, but there are things that I may not agree with. And I stood up, right? And I spoke up as well. And I wasn't there I didn't go in there to say, I want to be the chairman and let me have these relationships, let me vote this way, let me behave this way so that I can be that. No, I didn't. And I became a chairman by the grace of God. And because the speaker saw something in me, he saw a woman that worked hard, that did her homework, that had good relationships with people, but that kept her word. And my word is all I have. And I tell the people that I mentor, your word is your bond. And when I said I'm not going to vote for it, I'm not going to vote for it. And if I said I'm going to vote for it, to my detriment, I gave you my word, I have to do it. And that's how I have lived. And sometimes when you live that way, it takes you a little longer. But that's okay. I am fine with it.
Delegate Peña-Melnyk, you have provided for me possibly one of the most powerful examples of the impact of lived experience in whatever field or realm that we have done a training on. So I wanted you, if you would, to sort of take us home on the topic of the backlash to the so-called racial reckoning. And what we're hearing in so many different quarters is we're tired of hearing about inclusion, DEI. DEI is being branded as didn't earn it. And in so many sectors, people want to counter these efforts with, it doesn't matter whether it's a person of color, as long as they're qualified, as long as, we need to stop championing that. So what advice would you give to journalists who may even deal with some of that in the newsroom about the need to keep lived experience centered in this discussion?
Thank you for the question. I think that for you as journalists, it's important that you think outside the box, and I mean that respectfully, and that you ask yourself when you're in a room, you put on an equity lens, right? And this is what I do on my committee. And you look around, take a second to just look around and see who's not in the room. And to be intentional in your reporting about pushing it. Because lived experiences are important. Diversity is important, okay? it is really important, especially when we're drafting policies, to make sure that we think about everyone and that no one is left behind. And to make sure that the money is divided appropriately, equally fair, in a fair way, right? To make sure that you look at the facts, at the data, at the science, and report on it. And for you as reporters to push on it and say, no, you do need diversity. You do need inclusion, because we are better people. And that is common sense when we have empathy for others, right? And when we are inclusive and thoughtful. It's just human nature. And how can you be that if you don't have the diversity in the room? If the stories don't reflect us all, right? You push on that because it matters. It really does, especially during these times. It's really important. No apologies.
Thank you for an inspiring and informative discussion. We are so grateful, and I'd like us to show our gratitude to Delegate Peña-Melnyk.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for your time and for your questions and for, looking at me and feeling me from the heart, because it matters, okay? Don't tell my staff I didn't use the notes.